Thank you for tuning in to the Unjiggered podcast. If you enjoy listening, please consider subscribing and giving us a rating on your podcast service of choice. Also, don't forget to like and tag us on Instagram at unjiggered_media. Thank you to everybody for listening, and now on with the show. You're listening to Unjiggered, a bartender podcast where we interview highly successful bartenders about their careers, lives, and the passion of bartending. This week's guest is Pippa Guy, who's Tanqueray's UK ambassador, the author of Let's Get Fizzical, but most importantly, the first female senior bartender to be appointed to the Savoy's American bar in over 100 years. So sit back and enjoy our chat with Pippa.
Hi, my name is Pippa Guy. I am a whale enthusiast, ocean lover, former bartender, and now Tanqueray brand ambassador.
Thank you so much for your time, Pippa. How about you?
I'm good, thank you, darling. How are you?
Pretty good. Feeling the lockdown vibes here in Scotland. Like, we are not there yet, but you guys in the UK certainly are, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, in England.
First day of
My
lockdown.
apologies.
Lockdown 2.0.
There you go. Lockdown, the reboot no one wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So, where are you from, Pippa?
Originally, I was born in Banbury, which is kind of the middle of nowhere, sort of halfway in between Oxford and Birmingham. Full-on countryside, more sheep and cows than people.
Oh, great. And how was life there?
It was great. Like, I, as a youngster, was a big lover of the big outdoors, so spent most of my sort of childhood growing up on the farm with the horses and the cows, and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I come myself from a very small town, like 750 people in the middle of nowhere. And I loved it because it's a very cool experience to get to be outdoors and experience the great countryside. Unfortunately, I think when you get to age 16, 17, it starts to feel a bit tight, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets a bit boring as you get older, but nice to have the option to be able to go back and visit now.
Absolutely. So at what stage did you move out of there?
I moved out when I was 18, when I went to university.
And what was that?
Leeds. Woo.
So, from what I understand, I've never been there, right?
You've never been?
I've never been to Leeds, but I only heard stories from Declan and the likes, and it sounds like it's this massive party hub, is it?
Yeah, Leeds, it's a pretty cool city. It has, I think, 4 or maybe 5 universities now. So there's like every sort of different career path going on there, so you have like just this massive city of students from like all walks of life. So yeah, it's a pretty busy, pretty fun city for that age group.
That sounds fabulous. And what did you study there?
I studied sport and exercise science.
Oh, cool. So all about being fit and stuff, is it?
Yeah, it's been very useful for a career in bartending.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something that we really don't strike very well, like health and work balance here, is it? In our industry, something that we can certainly work on.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. And at some point you started bartending, didn't you, during your studies?
Yeah, so I started actually at the end of my first year, I applied for a job as a barback at Trio Bar and Grill, which was just around the corner from where I was living as a student. The bar manager at the time was Keith Motsey, actually, who now runs Charles H in Seoul.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I started there as a barback, working part-time as I was continuing my studies.
Cool. What was the motivation?
Mostly just to be a bit more self-sufficient, and to spend a few more nights out, like socialising, but to be earning money instead of spending money and drinking all the time.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Like, a lot of people started like that, myself included, you know. It's like a great way to just get out, do something, get to know people, but also learn a little bit of cash on the side, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can be in that sort of like sociable environment and have lots of fun and, you know, build some great new friendships, but you can actually also like learn and earn money at the same time.
I agree. And I also think that this is something that, if you're a very focused individual, you don't really put a lot of attention to it. But I think like making sure you have fun at the beginning of your career is probably the most important bit, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably one of the things that has kept us all in it for such a long time is those aspects of it. Like being able to build such strong relationships with people and Like it was always a really important point for me to, when I was like thinking about what I wanted to do when I grew up, so to speak, was something that I enjoyed. I didn't want to get stuck behind, a desk Monday to Friday. I wanted to do something that was dynamic, something that was fun, something that allowed me to travel, and this has just been perfect for me.
Fabulous. And how did that go for you, like as a first bar experience? Did you progress?
Yeah, it was great. So I moved onto the bar probably like maybe half a year or a year later, and then moved to supervisor just as I was kind of coming towards the end of my degree. So I had a little bit more time. I think I did that in the summer. And then I left just after I graduated. I stayed for a few months as supervisor full time, to save up some money to go away travelling, and then went away travelling with my best friend shortly after.
Oh, fabulous. Where did you go?
We went all over the place. We flew to New Zealand and kind of like worked our way home from there, so to speak. Like, so went to Australia,
that sounds awesome.
Singapore, Malaysia, and then kind of like all the way through like Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, and then sort of came back through there.
Must have been awesome, eh?
Oh, it was incredible. Like, we'd worked so hard to save up money as well. So we didn't need to work for the entire time. Obviously, like, the Asia's significantly cheaper than the UK, so you need less money to sort of live out there. But it was like incredible. And I've been back to a few places like Indonesia I really loved. I've been back to Bali twice since, and would love to go back to Vietnam as well.
That's fabulous. That's one of the places that when I was in Asia, I didn't have the chance to visit Vietnam. But I heard it's outstanding, is it?
Yeah, it's like so incredibly beautiful and varied. Like, obviously the country's long and thin, and the difference between like north and south is incredible. And then there's also like tropical kind of rainforesty part of central. So yeah, it was just an incredible country.
So you went through the entirety of the country, basically?
Yeah, worked our way from the bottom to the top.
That's amazing. That's a year well spent, I think, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Great. So then at some point you come back to the UK, and what's the deal now? Like, what did you want to do?
I was kind of like not sure what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to come back to begin with, to be honest. But was like, okay, do I want to use my degree and do something maybe like a physio master's or something kind of sports related? But I wasn't quite sure that was exactly what I wanted, and before committing to another 2 years of university and obviously the financial aspect of that as well, my previous employer of Porto got in touch and were looking for a bar manager. So I thought, well, actually, I need to start earning some money because, I was broke at this point and living back at my parents' house for a few weeks, and I was like, okay, we need to make something happen. So I was like, okay, look, I really love the bar. It was like a late night rock and roll dive bar, and I was like, do you know what? I'm not ready to like do anything too serious yet. I'm like want to go and have some more fun, and I'll figure it out when I get back to Leeds. Like, I love the city so much, and I had loads of friends there, so I was like, look, this is a really good option for now, and then I'll figure out what I want to do like for the rest of my life when I get there.
Cool. So you went back into it in Leeds?
Yeah, back to Leeds.
And how was that for you? Like coming back after? Because I think if you take such a big break and you start traveling and things like that, it's sort of like odd to get back into it. I don't know. Did you feel the same way or?
Yeah, I guess it is. Like, after living the life of traveling luxury for not luxury, but travelling and sort of, dossing around the world for about 11 months, it's very difficult to come back to like a structured atmosphere as well. But at the same time, it's also kind of nice because you do miss having like a permanent base after a while of being a bit of a nomad and living out of a backpack. It's nice to have your own shower.
Yeah, exactly, and a reliable shower.
Yeah.
Knowing that you can shower at the end of the day, is it?
Yeah, it was really nice as well to like reconnect with all my friends. Like, some of them I hadn't seen for best part of a year or over a year, and it was nice to have like those kind of solid sociable occasions back. My friend Natalie then also got engaged, so I was like really happy to kind of be back in everyone's life.
Did did coming back from such a big year traveling change your perspective on things? Like in Leeds, did you make you reevaluate the city?
I think traveling is just one of those things that changes your perspective on life as a whole. You learn about people and places and cultures, and it just like makes you a bit more rounded as a person. Obviously, we're in travel restrictions heavily at the moment, and I feel bad for the sort of age group of people that are leaving school or university. Would be what you'd want to go and do right now, but that will reopen again. And I think like travel's so important to like building who you are as a character. Like I highly recommend it.
That's great. Good to hear. So you're back in Leeds, managing this rock and roll place. You're having a lot of fun. At what stage did you think, okay, maybe it's time to move out from Leeds?
Well, I guess Declan and Joe Schofield probably found me before I went looking. I think that was the point where I'd been there for just over a year, and it was a lot of late nights and stuff, and I was starting to think, okay, maybe I'm ready to move on. And their timing was really sort of perfect. They came up to Leeds to do a guest shift for Leeds Loves Cocktails Festival.
Okay.
And chatted about the Savoy and about the vintage menu, and then they came to a whiskey party that I was hosting that night. And at some point when the three of us were dancing on the bar, yes, there are pictures, I'll send them to you, Michele.
Please do.
they obviously thought like, oh, she's perfect for the American bar. I think maybe that was more of an indication of how much they'd had to drink than how suitable my skills were, possibly. But we continued the conversation afterwards. Declan asked me to apply, so I was like, yeah, okay, fine, like went for it, not ever thinking that it was like going to actually happen. And then like 2 weeks later he rang me, he was like, okay, you've got the job, like when can you move to London? And I was like, what?
That's incredible, that's so cool. And so then you moved to London.
Yeah, so luckily it kind of tied in with my rent on my flat being, my contract being up, so I was like, do you know what, like I can actually be there in 2 weeks, and was a bit like gobsmacked that this was going to happen. So yeah,
it was meant to be, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah. Maybe, who knows. Yeah, so I went on holiday with my family a week later, and then 2 weeks later I started at the Savoy.
Boom, fantastic. And how did that go for you? Any challenges that you had at the beginning?
It was terrifying, honestly. I'd never been to the American bar before starting as a server. And the whole like prospect was quite daunting. It's like a whole category of people and guests that I'd never worked with. People at the bar were all so bloody good at their job, and like there's a whole world of people that I'd just never engaged with before. So learning how to speak with guests and to deal with that kind of style of service and that in-depth amount of service and sort of things that you have to learn and do was really daunting. I remember feeling like very much like on show, like on stage, and being very like self-conscious to begin with. I'd also never really worn like heels before. Like I'd go to work in like denim shorts and baggy t-shirts and Converse, and then the whole concept of like wearing a dress and heels and carrying like a silver tray was a bit like far out for me at that time.
That's cool though. Like what I love about the American bar is that you get people from all sorts of backgrounds in there. And you have people that are very, very like 5-star, or people that have never worked anywhere else in 5 stars. But you also have people that are the exact opposite. And I like that the sort of like the American bar is this melting pot of different bartending styles, I think. I don't know, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, 100%. Like all of the sort of different characters and different backgrounds. London for me as well really opened my eyes to like how international the bar scene is. Obviously in Leeds it's like slightly less international. There's a lot of sort of students and locals that live there, whereas London is just like a complete melting pot of culture, isn't it? Never worked with so many Italians before in my life.
Yeah, it's crazy, especially in the bar industry. There's so many of us. It's surreal. I really can't. I really don't know why. Like that's the case, but yeah.
I'm really sad that my Italian's not better as well.
Really?
after, years of working with many Italians. My swear words are great, but my conversational Italian is practically none.
Well, aren't they the same thing? Like conversational Italian as well?
I say no, it's just lots of hand gestures, isn't it?
Indeed, exactly. That's all you need. Cool. So from the get-go, you started to work on the floor, as you mentioned. Did you have your eyes set on a bartending position at this stage, or not really?
Yeah, I was fully set on becoming a bartender at the Savoy. I'm quite a stubborn character, and I remember being told before I moved there that like girls don't really work the bar there, and they don't even have white jackets, etc. I think it was just head bartender had like the jacket with the black lapel, and then it was only the guys that wore jackets. Which was like probably one of my favourite things that happened during the time that I was there and since I've left. Obviously the American bar is currently closed, but up until it closed recently, the beginning of the summer, everyone now wears white jackets and trousers and stuff. The girls don't have to wear the blue dress anymore. Everyone wears the same uniform, which I think is like about time.
Yeah, and I think this dress thing was a bit weird.
Yeah,
like
and
the
also
fact they had the separate uniform for like they had completely different uniforms from male to female kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's just unnecessary, I think, in my opinion. Like, I understand why uniforms are still a thing, and actually, like, the American bar, the white jacket is so iconic and beautiful, until you're making a Bloody Mary, that I think it's just really important that why shouldn't everyone be wearing that? Everyone who's a part of that bar is a part of its history, so everyone should be wearing that jacket.
Yeah, very much so. I agree, and I think that the fact that you managed to change that is actually quite remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just about sort of encouraging everyone to raise their voice and have an opinion and have a seat at the table as well. And I think once I started doing it, the rest of the girls were like, "Do you know what? Yeah, you're right. Like, we all want this."
And how did you go about changing the system, essentially? Because you wanted to have equal opportunities, right? And I can tell you how I felt from the other end as well. Because I think that looking back at it, I think that for some reason we had some sort of unrealistic expectations for female bartenders. And I think that when I was in it, I didn't actually realize it. But for instance, like I believe that Alice is a great example. I think Alice is absolutely great, right? And she's probably one of the best people I've ever worked with in terms of like colleagues and passion they had for the place where they were at. But when I was speaking cocktails with her, for some reason, like say if she didn't know the recipe of a hanky-panky, I would be like, why does she not know the recipe of a hanky-panky? We're working here, right? While if one of my male colleagues who was a barback would have the same issue, I'd be like, yeah, don't worry, she'll get it. And so I think that there was this like subconscious double standard. Like, what do you think?
I think it's really interesting that you say that, actually. I think for just a long time, the Savoy was like a bit of a boys' club, wasn't it? The only girls, when I started, the girls were all hosts, apart from Alice, who was on the floor. And I think that you get used to your surroundings, don't you? And it's really funny because I remember when I started, you were a senior bartender, weren't you?
Yeah.
And like would watch you on the bar endlessly and be like a little bit terrified of you, because I was like, he's so good, and you're a bit terrifying because you are quite strict, which is like good. You need to be and like hold people accountable to keep the standards high, which is great. And I think you left before I became junior bartender.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
But actually, like, for me, the other night when we were working the last dance event, and you and I were on the bar together and we had such a great time, and you said to me at the end, it's so nice to work behind the bar with you. I wish we could have had more time to do this at the Savoy. And that was, like, such a gratifying feeling for me, I think, like, I, as a junior bartender, like really seeked all of your approval so much, and it was just like, it was a really cool moment for me.
Oh, really? Oh, to be honest, you didn't need it. Like, you've done such an excellent job. Like, looking at the incredible potential that you had and the way that you went about achieving your potential, it's absolutely phenomenal. You should be proud of yourself. I mean, you changed the status quo in one of the biggest bartending institutions in the world. I think I think kudos to you, right?
Yeah, I think it was difficult as well. Like, there was a lot, obviously, when I made senior bartender, I found it really conflicting because there was so much press. I was at that time doing interviews with different newspapers like pretty much every week for like 2 months or something like that. And at the time I was like really I don't know, a bit daunted by it all, obviously, because it was like so sudden and that sort of thing. It never really happened to me. I'd never had people pay me that much attention. But also I was a bit like, why is everyone just focusing on the fact that like I'm a girl? Like, nobody was focusing on, like, nobody was asking me about the drinks that I'd created for the menu, or like, you know, like the aspects of my job that I'm good at. You know, like, all of the attention was literally just on the fact that I was a girl, and I was like, you know, you're all saying this is a great achievement, but like, to make senior bartender at the Savoy is an achievement for anyone, regardless of gender. Like, I found it really conflicting.
No, I can see your point, and I agree with you. I just think that the reason why the focus was there, it was because of the fact that you sort of set a precedent that was not, I wouldn't say achieved, but done by anybody else before, to a certain extent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I do understand it. I think it also like kind of just didn't really help my like imposter syndrome, I guess, of being like, am I just here because I'm a girl? Like, do people really think like, am I actually any good at my job, or you know, is this just because this is a gender thing?
No, and I can see that. But I think that the way to see it is that you are purely there on merit. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been there. And I think your track record proves the fact that you were there on merit, and you achieved more than a lot of other people achieved in your position. I mean, talking of such achievements, for instance, your cooperation with Coca-Cola, I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, for me to be in Singapore and to be able to buy a bottle of Coca-Cola that has Pippa Guy name on it, I mean, how amazing is that? I actually find your Coca-Colas in the middle of nowhere in China. I was in Wuhan with Roberto Bava, and we went into a cocktail bar just before my shift, and the bartender there gave us this twist on a rum and coke, was one of his drinks, and he was using your Coca-Cola, and I thought, this is so cool.
No way.
Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. I have pictures, and I'm gonna send them over to you.
Maybe it was you that sent me that picture. I remember somebody not too long after it had launched, so it launched 2 years ago, and it was supposed to only be Western Europe to begin with, and like maybe 2 or 3 months later, maybe it was Federica actually, somebody sent me a picture of a fridge in like an off license in Hong Kong, and it was just full of my Coca-Cola, and I was like, what is going on?
Cool. So for those who don't know, let's talk about it. So first of all, what is it, this Coca-Cola we're talking about?
So Coca-Cola did a collaboration with 5 bartenders, and the project was called Signature Mixes. So the idea was to take Coca-Cola as it was and make like an elevation of it, with the aim to be mixed with dark spirits, so, you know, rums, whiskey, aged tequilas, etc., and to take the Coke like flavour profile and make a new flavour. Obviously, you know, they did like cherry and vanilla and mango and whatever before, but they wanted us to do something a little bit more complex, so ours was Spicy Notes was the name of it. So it had like spicy elements of sort of jalapeno and ginger, but it also had rosemary, lime, and jasmine. So it's a bit more of a like bartender version, I guess, with a bit more flavour and complexity.
How was the process of developing a flavour of Coca-Cola?
So it was a 2-day workshop, really, that we did underneath the former Bar 3, Max Venning's old bar in Spitalfields, and they basically built for us like one side of the room was just covered in like fresh ingredients and like oils, distillates, like dried powders and fresh ingredients, yada yada, like every kind of ingredient. Like, honestly, it was like a bartender's playground. If you'd walked in and saw that in the back of your like bar area, you'd probably just like faint. It was so cool. So then we were given like the base syrup of Coca-Cola, and then could add things to it and sort of play around with it. And that took us like a full day. I think we're doing it for like 8 hours in the end. We started in pairs as well. So I was paired up with Adriana and everyone was in pairs to begin with. And then people kind of broke off and went into like doing individual recipes after that. Adriana and I did as well. Obviously this is a question that we get asked quite a lot. Why is you're the only one that has 2 collaborators on it? And everyone else has 1. And actually just the answer is the one that we made together was just the best recipe. We both made individual ones and they just weren't as good.
That's awesome. And so now you have a Coca-Cola with your name on it.
Yeah.
That's
I know.
awesome.
And do you know what's really funny about this as well? So when they told us about the label and that they wanted our signature on it as well, because it was signature mixes, mine like looks like it's been written by a child because they were like, can you like draw your signature out and like send it over to us in a PDF document, but make sure that it's really clear. So they were talking about like the quality of the document that we sent over, but I thought they meant our signature, so I was like like printing my name. So now this is on like every single bottle of Coca-Cola signature mixes around the world, and it looks like a child wrote my signature. But it does kind of, I haven't actually told anyone that before, but it does make me giggle every time I see it.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. And I mean, this sets us up for the next bit, being you being the queen of fizz. Talk to us about your book. How did that go? So first of all, what's the name of the book and how did you go about writing it and why?
So the book is called Let's Get Fizzical. Physical with an F. Love a good pun. So very characterful. I guess that came around, so DK, the publishing company, got in touch with me in January 2018. So nearly 3 years ago. My gosh. And sent me an email actually to my work email and asked if I would be interested on collaborating on a book with them. I tried to delete this email because I showed it to my mum and I was like, oh, this is definitely scam, right? She was like, no, you should probably just like, I don't know, email back, ask for some more information. So we, a few emails back and forwards. They told me sort of what the plan was. They wanted someone to collaborate on a book with them about sparkling cocktails or fizzy cocktails. So I was like, yeah, this sounds interesting. Definitely, like, when I moved to the American bar, my love of sort of champagne and all things fizz stems from there. I remember on my first night in Nereus, our former colleague, who's now bar manager at the Berkeley Bar and Terrace, was like, darling, we're going for champagne. And I was like, oh, I don't think I've ever drank champagne before, but I was like, so terrified of everyone that I was like, oh yeah, of course, I can drink champagne.
Must, yeah.
And Nereus very well. He's not an easy guy to say character. No to.
Yes.
Luckily, his expensive taste in champagne has passed over. So when they approached me, I was a bit like hesitant at first. Because this is shortly after, so in October 2017 was when the American Bar won World's Best Bar. So we were like so busy that Christmas and into January, and it was not stopping. So I was like, am I mental to take on another project that's going to last, the best part of a year, and that's going to be like a huge amount of work, plus we had loads of sort of guest shifts and loads of like fun, cool stuff packed into that year already. My schedule was already super busy, so I was a little bit like hesitant to take on more work on top of that. But I think it was my mum that was like, opportunities like this don't just sort of present themselves to people all the time. Like, yeah, okay, you might be really busy, but it's not, these sort of things don't wait, so you should just go for it. So I was like, okay, sod it, I'll do it.
Cool. And so how did that go? Like, what was the idea behind the book, or did you have any specific thing you wanted to talk about?
So the idea around the book, it was really aimed at consumers, so like general public, not bartenders. It was not supposed to be like an in-depth nerdy book. It was supposed to be something like easy and replicable, something that you could, give your Prosecco loving aunt or uncle for Christmas, and that they would be able to follow along the recipes and make and enjoy all of the recipes in there. So I wanted to make sure there was lots of classics in there. I didn't realise like how many classics actually have champagne in. Like obviously you start thinking about like, the champagne cocktail, French 75. Once you actually get into it, there are so many drinks that use fizz. So I had mostly like the classic section was the biggest, and then each of those would have like small twists on of my recipes, and then there's I think maybe 5 to 10 recipes that were just purely my creations at the end.
That's awesome. And so the whole process, how long did it last?
So from start to finish, January was when they first sort of got in contact with me, and it was published in November. The actual writing, etc., probably took sort of 7 months maybe. And then there was a lot of sort of editorial back and forth. 3 days of photo shooting to get all the photos done, and then another day of sort of like graphic design for all the pictograms and other sort of little bits. And then once it was sort of finished and completed, 2 months of waiting, and then in November it came out.
That's awesome. So this you must be so proud of it. It's such a huge achievement.
Yeah, I am super proud of it. Everyone's always been like, so like when are you going to do the next one? I was like, never again. It was like when I thought about how much work it was going to be, I was like, I know this is going to be a lot. If you triple that, that's probably how much it actually was.
Cool. So you've done your book, you've got your Coca-Cola collaboration, and then at some point you decided to move on from the Savoy. What was the thought process behind it?
So I left the Savoy 5th of September last year, so just over a year ago. I think at that point, obviously Eric had left as head bartender and Maxime had started, and I'd been working with Maxime for about a year. And there was just nowhere further for me to progress at that point. I was ready to take on more and to be able to sort of influence my own style. Obviously, Max as head bartender was only just sort of starting his career there, so I knew he wasn't going to leave anytime soon. So I thought it was time to look further afield. And at the point that I left, I wasn't entirely sure what that was going to be, what that was going to look like. And I'd waited, I'd sort of discussed with Declan at the beginning of the summer how I felt and what I wanted to do. We looked into a few options and nothing had sort of piqued my interest. So I was kind of ready to also regain a bit more of like work-life balance. I think you can also attest to this, that the Savoy is an amazing place to work, but it takes a heck of a lot of your personal life as well. And the commitment and level of commitment that people show is outstanding, but it does mean a lot of sacrificing of your personal life. So I was quite happy to leave without anything sort of lined up, so that I could sort of reclaim a bit of time, spend some time with my family and the friends that I haven't seen for the last few years, and get a bit of my sort of health and mental wellness back as well. I had quite a few sort of like consultancies and other events lined up until Christmas, so I knew financially that I would be okay to earn the same as, if not more than what my wage was up until Christmas, which also gave me a few months to sort of sleep and readjust and figure out what I wanted to do come the new year.
And what happened in the new year?
Yes, so I started to chat with Jonathan Lynn and Harrison Ginsberg from New York in November, and we sort of figured everything out. They had plans for this beautiful new opening of a bar with a small team. So I have a US passport, so I'm very lucky that moving to New York was a very easy option for me, and didn't involve quite as much of the sort of organisation and visas, etc. So I moved to New York in January this year, which seems like both a very long time ago and also not very long at all, to go and work with them. So I was there actually total 2 months exactly, door to door. Sadly, obviously, we never got to open the bar. We were probably about a month or 6 weeks away from getting it open, when the coronavirus pandemic sort of really set in. And at that time, I chose to come home to be with my family whilst the world sort of figured out what was going to happen.
This is such an incredible time, is it? Like the amount of people that had to do some major readjustments due to the pandemic is surreal. And if I look at some of the colleagues that I had the chance to work with, and some industry leaders and people who are extremely qualified at their job, the fact that they had to pretty much replan their whole lives due to this is incredible, is it?
Yeah, it's really mental. It's been such a tough year for so many people. I think, on a personal note, I never would have expected of myself to be unemployed for 7 months. That thought, if you'd said that to me a few years ago, you would have been like, oh no, it's crazy, like all of our jobs are so secure, the world is thriving, the cocktail scene is booming, it's amazing. And yeah, it's been a really crushing year for so many people, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, no question about it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how the industry bounces back come January, February, when the thick of it will be gone, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we are like such a resilient industry, aren't we? People are hardworking, and I think everyone's learnt this year as well that supporting each other is such a key factor to us all getting through this together. I do genuinely feel positive about what will happen. There will be an end to this. I know it's incredibly anxiety-inducing whilst we don't know what that is just yet. There will be an end to it and people will be able to come back and hopefully everyone will be able to get their livelihoods back on track.
I agree. Cool. So we talked about you coming back from the US, but what is the future? What are your future plans and what's on your project books now?
So I'm now the UK brand ambassador for Tanqueray, which is amazing. It's such a refreshing silver lining for me. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I feel incredibly lucky and grateful to have not only just found a job during the pandemic, but a really good one with a brand that I love. It's doing something completely different as well, so I'm learning a lot and being challenged in different ways. Obviously it wasn't my plan A for this year, but it's, cool that you can have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D even ruined and still find something incredible at the end. And I think that's possibly one of the things that I've been trying to tell people the most this year, have backup plans and don't be sad sometimes when things don't go the way that you wanted them to. You can still come out with an amazing result.
Absolutely. And if we look at it, I think it was the same thing at the beginning of your career, right? When all of a sudden, this opportunity for you to work at the Savoy just appears in front of you. And we just said probably it was just the right time, right? It was just supposed to be because of the timings and everything. I think this Tanqueray opportunity was just supposed to be, right? It was just meant to be. It was just in there for you, and just the path that you went there is not a traditional path because we're not in a traditional situation, aren't we?
Not in a traditional year. Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I'm most grateful for as well is that I left the Savoy because I was looking for being able to balance a job that I love and enjoy with a life that I love and enjoy, and try and get that a bit more 50-50. And obviously, this Tanqueray job has been amazing for me on so many other levels. I've rejoined a netball team since I left, Leeds 5 and a bit years ago. I haven't been able to play competitive netball, which is super exciting. I've now got more time on my hands to surf with my sister, and spend more time with my family and my friends, and I'm so grateful on so many different levels for everything that's now coming out of what's happened. So sometimes the saying, when one door shuts another one opens, maybe sometimes a door shuts for a reason.
That's probably true. You have had a very good track book of dealing with unforeseen challenges ahead of you and trying to shape positions around you. How do you see this position right now? Do you see any challenges? Because you're moving to the other side of the bar to an extent, like by being
to
a
the
brand
dark
ambassador.
side.
To the dark side of the bar. Do you see any challenges with that, or?
Yeah, for sure. Like, trying to learn how everything works from the other side is always interesting, doesn't it? But I think it also gives you a unique perspective on how you can function within a brand. I think there's a reason why brand ambassadors are pretty much always employed former bartenders, because of the skill set you have to bring to the job. Another part of my job is also taking over the world class program for GB, along with my colleague and housemate Joe from the Beaufort Bar. So we're both super excited about that as well. It gives like another sort of aspect to our job that also kind of keeps us really tied to the bartending community and the people that are sort of up and coming as well. I think I'm really fortunate to have received like amazing mentorship from the people that I've worked with, Eric and Declan and Joe Schofield, who kind of still has me tucked under his wing. So it's really cool that I think we're both really looking forward to keeping that connectivity with the bar community in the UK.
That's absolutely fantastic to hear. Cool. So just a couple of closing notes. If you could give any suggestion to younger individuals trying to join this industry, what would you say to them?
Be brave. It's a confusing looking sort of world that we live in at the moment. Be brave, like work on yourself, work on your skills and stuff, and reach out to other people in the community as well. Whilst we're all on lockdown, I think everyone's really trying to sort of polish up on their skills, create menus, and keep themselves busy. So interact with the community around you and check in on people as well.
Great, cool. And very final question I asked to everyone: if you could choose your very last drink, what would that be?
Ooh, last drink ever? Like, am I
yeah,
dying?
this is like a day before being executed kind of thing.
Ooh, I really love Bollinger Le Grand Année champagne.
Oh my God,
so probably like a bottle of that. Like,
that sounds phenomenal.
Does it have to be a single drink, like bottle and a straw?
Yeah, you can choose
Doesn't
that.
matter
That
if I'm
sounds
hungover
great.
anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. We had a guy in this podcast trying to cheat the system, saying he would have a corpse reviver number 2 so then he can come back to life. But
very clever.
Yeah, that was very clever. Yeah. Cool, people. It was amazing to talk to you, and thank you very much for your time.
Nice to chat to you.
We hope you enjoyed our chat with Pippa. We are Unjiggered_media on Instagram, and you can follow our personal accounts at mmariotti89 for Michele, Alex J. Murphy for myself, and Adrian Besser for Adrian. Thank you for listening.